Hollywood's most outspoken critic just took on the 45th President of the United States. Live, unfiltered, and completely unexpected. What started as a routine late-night interview turned into one of the most explosive political clashes of the year. Meryl Streep, fueled by outrage, attempted to dismantle Donald Trump's legacy with shocking accusations about his personal life. But in an unprecedented twist, the former president himself called in, turning the tables in a way no one saw coming. Stay tuned. This is a moment that will be talked about for years to come. The tension in the studio had been palpable from the start. Riley Morgan, the sharp-witted and unapologetically liberal host of Exposing the Agenda, had secured a high-profile guest for the evening, Hollywood legend and vocal political activist Meryl Streep. The energy in the room was electric, the anticipation crackling in the air as the interview began. Streep, a master of rhetoric and impassioned speeches, had come prepared. Her past remarks about Donald Trump were no secret. She had openly criticized his policies, his character, and his leadership for years. But tonight, something was different. Tonight, she wasn't just here to talk politics. She had something more personal in mind, something she believed would finally shatter Trump's reputation beyond repair. The interview began like any other, with Morgan setting the stage, guiding the conversation towards the current political climate. Streep, her expressions animated, wasted no time unleashing a scathing critique of Trump's presidency, calling his influence a stain on American democracy. The audience, likely full of left-leaning viewers, roared in agreement. It was the kind of moment that made headlines, but what came next was something no one could have scripted. With a slight smirk and a glint of satisfaction in her eyes, Streep leaned forward, lowering her voice just enough to command attention. She was about to go further than she ever had before. She didn't just want to critique Trump, she wanted to expose him. And she knew exactly how to do it. She began speaking about his marriage, weaving a narrative that painted Melania Trump as a woman trapped in a cold, loveless union. She suggested that the former First Lady had been forced into a role she never wanted, that her public smiles were a facade masking deep unhappiness. But she didn't stop there. She insinuated that their relationship was little more than a business arrangement, a carefully crafted illusion that served Trump's ambitions more than it did his wife's happiness. Morgan, ever the instigator, pushed further, asking whether Streep truly believed the marriage was a sham. Streep, emboldened by the moment, doubled down. She claimed to have heard whispers, stories from unnamed insiders who allegedly knew the truth. Her voice rose with conviction, her words dripping with certainty. The audience was enthralled, some gasping at the audacity of what she was suggesting. The chat room on the live stream exploded. Social media lit up. Viewers watching at home were either cheering in agreement or shaking their heads in disbelief. Was this an actress speaking out of turn, or was she revealing a long-hidden truth? Then, the unthinkable happened. A studio assistant hurried onto the set, whispering frantically into Morgan's earpiece. The host's eyes widened in shock. For a moment she seemed to hesitate, unsure if she should share the news with her guest. But the decision was made for her when her producer signaled from off-camera. There was no stopping it now. Donald Trump was on the line, and he was demanding to speak. A hush fell over the studio. Even Streep, so confident just moments ago, seemed caught off guard. There was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. This wasn't how the interview was supposed to go. She had expected backlash, of course, but not this. Not an immediate, direct confrontation from the man himself. Morgan, ever the opportunist, wasted no time. With a dramatic pause, she announced that they would be taking a live call from Donald Trump. The screen split to show his name flashing across the broadcast, a surreal moment that no one could have predicted. Then his voice came through. Calm, composed, yet carrying the unmistakable steel edge of someone who had just been pushed too far. From the moment he spoke, the energy in the room shifted. The air became thick with the weight of what was about to unfold. Streep sat up straighter, her bravado momentarily shaken. She had called him out, and now he was here to respond. Trump wasted no time addressing her accusations. He dismissed them outright, calling them desperate lies from an industry obsessed with taking him down. But then, rather than immediately going on the offensive, he did something unexpected. He spoke of his marriage, not with anger, not with the bluster his critics often mocked him for, but with an eerie sense of control. He painted a picture of a partnership rooted in mutual respect, of a wife who had stood beside him through the most turbulent moments of his life, not out of obligation, but out of choice. His words were deliberate, measured, cutting through the tension like a blade. He spoke of love, of faith, of the sacred bond of marriage that too many in Hollywood had forgotten. And with every word, the power dynamic of the interview began to shift. Streep, who had begun the night in command, found herself in a battle she hadn't expected. Trump wasn't just defending himself. He was seizing control of the conversation, and he wasn't done yet. The confrontation was just beginning. As Trump's voice resonated through the speakers, a strange shift in energy gripped the studio. The once lively audience, so eager to cheer Streep's takedown of the former president, now sat in stunned silence. The tension was palpable, thick, electric, and utterly unrelenting. Riley Morgan, sensing the gravity of the moment, sat frozen. In her chair, her fingers gripping the edges of her desk. She had orchestrated many confrontational interviews before, but this was something different. Trump, as if fully aware of the dramatic weight of his unexpected entrance, continued in that same deliberate, unshaken tone. He wasn't just responding to Streep's accusations, he was dismantling them piece by piece, with a forcefulness that left little room for interruption. He described his marriage as a fortress, one that had withstood relentless attacks from the media, political adversaries, and now Hollywood elites desperate to undermine him. He spoke of Melania's strength, her unwavering dedication to her role not just as a wife, but as a mother and a leader in her own right. He painted a picture of a woman who had chosen, time and time again, to stand beside him. Not because she was forced, not because of some transactional arrangement, but because she believed in the values they shared. And then, with the precision of a man who knew exactly how to turn an argument on its head, he struck at the very foundation of Streep's claims. He called out the hypocrisy of Hollywood, the industry that paraded itself as a beacon of morality, while it harbored some of the most corrupt, scandal-ridden figures in the country. He spoke of the broken marriages, the cover-ups, the whispers of power plays behind closed doors. He questioned why a woman like Streep, who had stood on stages condemning men like Harvey Weinstein only after the floodgates had opened, thought she had the moral authority to define what a real marriage looked like. His words hit like a hammer. Streep, who had sat through the initial moments of Trump's monologue with thinly veiled irritation, now looked visibly unsettled. Her hands, once confidently folded in her lap, twitched slightly. She opened her mouth as if to interject, but Trump wasn't finished. Then, in a move that no one could have predicted, he brought God into the conversation. He spoke about the sanctity of marriage, about how the modern world had lost its way by discarding the principles that once held families together. He claimed that love wasn't something to be dissected by Hollywood gossip or political opportunists. It was sacred, tested by time, strengthened by faith. He didn't just defend his marriage, he turned it into a symbol, a statement against the decaying values of the very people who sought to tear him down. Streep, now visibly rattled, leaned forward, her composure cracking beneath the weight of Trump's rhetoric. She attempted to counter his claims, to shift the focus back onto the accusations she had made just moments earlier. But the momentum had changed. Trump had taken control, and he knew it. The studio audience, once hanging on Streep's every word, now seemed conflicted. Even those who despised Trump couldn't deny the impact of his words. The live chat on the stream reflected the shock. Comments were pouring in at an uncontrollable pace. Some were cheering him on, others were furious, but none were indifferent. Streep, desperate to regain her footing, finally snapped. She leaned into the microphone, her voice rising, her carefully measured delivery now edged with frustration. She accused Trump of manipulating the narrative, of using religion as a shield to deflect from the real issue, his alleged lack of genuine love and respect for Melania. She fired back, bringing up past moments where Melania had seemed distant, moments where cameras had caught her brushing off Trump's hand, instances where their dynamic didn't fit the image of the devoted couple he was now portraying. But Trump was ready. With an almost amused chuckle, he dismissed the allegations as nothing more than media fabrications, edited clips, carefully chosen moments taken out of context to sell a story. Then, with an edge of steel returning to his voice, he flipped the attack back on Streep herself, questioned why Hollywood, an industry riddled with failed marriages, temporary relationships, and performative activism, felt entitled to lecture anyone on the authenticity of love and commitment. He asked Streep directly how many of her peers had managed to hold on to marriages built on anything more than fleeting attraction or political convenience. The question landed like a blow. For the first time in the interview, Streep faltered, her eyes darted momentarily towards Riley Morgan, as if looking for an escape, an intervention, something to turn the tide back in her favor. Morgan, sensing the precarious balance of the situation, hesitated. She had been hoping for a fiery back and forth, but what had unfolded was something else entirely. She knew she had a responsibility to maintain control of the interview, but even she couldn't deny the impact of what had just transpired. Trump, never one to let an opportunity slip away, went in for the final strike, with a tone that was both sharp and measured. He spoke about the importance of family, of commitment, of faith in something greater than oneself. He said that while Hollywood thrived on tearing down institutions, he thrived on building them. And with that, the balance of power in the interview was completely undone. The once dominant Streep now found herself on unstable ground. Her attempts to steer the conversation back to her original accusations slipping further and further away. The audience, the viewers, the world watching, whether they liked Trump or not, couldn't deny what had just happened. The confrontation had taken a turn no one could have expected, and it wasn't over yet. Meryl Streep, once the dominant force in the conversation, was now visibly struggling to maintain control. The unwavering confidence that had carried her through decades in Hollywood, through countless interviews and award show speeches, was cracking under the weight of Trump's relentless counterattack. She shifted in her seat, trying to find the right words to steer the discussion back in her favor. But it was clear. The moment had slipped away from her. Trump, on the other end of the call, sensed her unease. He had been in countless high-stakes confrontations, had battled opponents far more ruthless than an aging Hollywood actress looking for a political moment. And now, with the world watching, he wasn't going to let up. He drove his point home, declaring that the attacks on his marriage weren't just attacks on him. They were attacks on the very values that once defined America. Faith, commitment, loyalty, principles that had held families together for generations. He accused Hollywood, the media, and his critics of trying to tear down those values, replacing them with moral decay, superficiality, and performative outrage. The audience, once eager to cheer on Streep's every word, was now silent. Even those who despised Trump had to admit he had seized control of the moment and there was no taking it back. Streep, however, was not ready to back down completely. With a deep breath, she straightened her posture, her face flushed with frustration. She tried one last time to reassert herself, her voice rising as she insisted that Trump was twisting the truth, manipulating his way out of accountability like he always had. But the fire in her words no longer held the same power. It was reactionary now, defensive. Trump, by contrast, remained composed, his voice steady, his words sharp but controlled. He let her speak, let her throw out accusations, let her try to claw back some semblance of authority in the conversation. And then, when she was done, he delivered the final blow. With absolute certainty, he declared that history would judge them both, not by the words they spoke in a heated interview, but by the legacies they left behind. He would be remembered as a fighter, as a man who never backed down, who defended his family, his beliefs, his country against all odds. Streep? She would be remembered as just another Hollywood elite who had spent her career attacking others while standing on a foundation of hypocrisy. The statement was brutal, but it was effective. The power dynamic in the room had fully shifted. Streep, once the undisputed star of the conversation, was now visibly seething, her frustration barely masked beneath a forced smile. Riley Morgan, sensing that things had spiraled beyond her control, finally stepped in. Her voice was uncharacteristically hesitant as she addressed the situation, knowing full well that no matter what she said next, the moment had already gone viral. Streep, her composure hanging by a thread, abruptly turned to Morgan. With an air of finality, she demanded that the call be cut. She had had enough. The audience let out a hushed gasp. The great Meryl Streep, after years of effortlessly tearing into her opponents, had just done something no one had expected. She had admitted defeat, not through words, but through action. She no longer wanted the fight. She wanted the conversation over. Morgan hesitated for a fraction of a second before nodding to the producers. The screen flickered, and Trump's voice was cut mid-sentence. Silence hung heavy in the studio. Streep forced a laugh, but it sounded hollow. She attempted to pivot the conversation, to regain some sense of control, but the damage was already done. The interview was over. Within moments, the internet exploded. Clips of the exchange flooded social media, with reactions pouring in from all corners. Trump's supporters celebrated the moment as another victory, proof of his ability to take on Hollywood and come out on top. Even those who despised him had to admit. It was a masterclass in dominance. Meanwhile, Streep's credibility had taken a hit. For years, she had been untouchable, a respected voice in Hollywood's political scene. But tonight, she had met an opponent she couldn't overpower with sheer force of words. The headlines came fast. Meryl Streep loses control in heated exchange with Trump. Trump flips the script on Hollywood elite. Streep demands to cut. Trump's call after losing ground in debate. It was undeniable. Trump had turned what was meant to be his public shaming into an unexpected triumph. As the night came to a close, Riley Morgan sat in the now empty studio, staring at the screen displaying live reactions. She had wanted controversy, had wanted an explosive moment. But what had unfolded had been something far greater than she had expected. One thing was certain. No one would forget this night. And just like that, the most shocking political confrontation of the year had reached its conclusion.